like ship Jake and Casey, the guy that sits next to you.
Welcome to the Respect the Ranch podcast for June 2015. I'm Scott Bailey. In case you're new to our Respect the Ranch podcast, our programs are built around a theme that explore that theme through stories, interviews, and art by RBV staff and students. Our podcast this June focuses on the theme of words. So our podcast in 4 acts. In Act 1, one of our own retiring science and English teachers reads a passage from an essay about lobsters by one of his favorite authors. In Act 2, 4 members of the RBV Drama Department perform notes by RBV students that have been found left in classrooms. In Act 3, a retiring original Longhorn English teacher reads a passage from a favorite author. And finally, Act 4, a poem by one of our favorite poets about dogs. All this to come on our Respect the Ranch podcast celebrating the theme of words for June 2015. Let's get started. Act 1. Science and English teacher Mike Nicholas has had a remarkable career as teacher and tennis coach. After teaching for 26 years in middle school, he moved over to RBV for his final 12 years of teaching, spreading his kindness and love of teaching to staff and students. In honor of his love of language and words, Mike reads a passage by one of his favorite authors, David Foster Wallace.
I am Michael Nicholas. I teach currently lab biology, but I also am an English teacher, so sort of explains my love of David Foster Wallace.
And what's special about this year in particular?
This year I'm retiring after 39 years of teaching and 10 years here at Rancho. I like David Foster Wallace. He was highly recommended by Thomas Pynchon, who was one of my all-time favorite writers. So I looked into it, and I read his book, Infinite Jest, which was hilarious in parts, and I liked it because it was based partly on a tennis boarding school. And one of the things I like about Wallace's fiction is he's not constrained to a linear time line of telling his story. So I like that he switches scenes without really warning and stuff like that. So it keeps you thinking. And to be honest, he's such a smart guy. The reason I like reading anything he writes is I always learn something. Even on the passage I'm going to read today, after reading it again, I learned something that I either didn't know or forgot I knew. So even today I learned something. The book I'm going to read for is a collection of essays by David Foster Wallace, and you probably know he took his life a few years ago. It's very sad. It's called Consider the Lobster. It's a collection of essays, as I say, and today I'm actually going to read a section of the essay called Consider the Lobster. For practical purposes, everyone knows what a lobster is. As usual, though, there's much more to know about them than most care about. It's all a matter of what interests you. Taxonomically speaking, a lobster is a marine crustacean of the family Homoratae, characterized by 5 pairs of jointed legs, the first pair terminating in large pincerous claws used for subduing prey. Like many other species of benthic carnivore, lobsters are both hunters and scavengers. They have stalked eyes, gills on their legs, and antennae. There are a dozen or so different kinds worldwide, of which the relative species here is the Maine lobster, Homerus americanus. The name lobster comes from the Old English lobstare, which is thought to be a corrupt form of the Latin word for locust, combined with the Old English lape, which means spider. Moreover, a crustacean is an aquatic arthropod of the class Crustacea, which comprises crabs, shrimps, barnacles, lobsters, and freshwater crayfish. All this is right there in the encyclopedia. And arthropods are members of the phylum Arthropoda, which phylum it covers insects, spiders, crustaceans, centipedes, millipedes, and all of whose main commonality, besides the absence of a centralized brain spine assembly, is a chitinous exoskeleton composed of segments to which appendages are articulated in pairs. The point is that lobsters are basically giant sea insects. Like most arthropods, they date from the Jurassic period, biologically so much older than mammalia that they might as well be from another planet. And they are, particularly in their natural brown-green state, brandishing their claws like weapons and with thick antennae a whip. Not nice to look at. And it's true that they are the garbage men of the sea, eaters of dead stuff, although they'll also eat some live shellfish, certain kinds of injured fish, and sometimes one another. But they are themselves good eating, or we think so now. Up until sometime in the 1800s, though, lobster was literally low-class food, eaten only by the poor and institutionalized. Even in the harsh penal environment of early America, some colonies had laws against feeding lobsters to inmates more than once a week because it was thought to be cruel and unusual, like making people eat rats. For one reason, their low status was how plentiful lobsters were in old New England. Unbelievable abundance is how one source described the situation, including accounts of Plymouth Pilgrims wading out and capturing all they wanted by hand, and of early Boston seashore being littered with lobsters after hard storms. These latter were treated as a smelly nuisance and ground up for fertilizer. There is also the fact that the pre-modern lobster was cooked dead and then preserved, usually packed in salt or crude hermetic containers. Maine's earliest lobster industry was based around a dozen such seaside canneries in the 1840s, from which lobster was shipped as far away as California in demand only because it was cheap and high in protein, basically a chewable fuel. Now, of course, lobster is posh, a delicacy only a step or two down from caviar. The meat is richer and more substantial than most fish, its taste subtle compared to the marine gaminess of mussels and clams. In the U.S. pop food imagination, lobster is now the seafood analog to steak, with which it's so often twinned as surf and turf on the really expensive part of the chain steakhouse menu. In fact, one obvious project of the MLF and of its omnipresently sponsorial Maine Lobster Promotion Council is to counter the idea that lobster is usually luxe or unhealthy or expensive, suitable only for effete palates or the occasional blow-the-diet treat. It is emphasized over and over in presentations and pamphlets at the festival that lobster meat has fewer calories, less cholesterol, and less saturated fat than chicken. And in the main eating tent, you can get a quarter, industry shorthand for a 1¼ pound lobster, a 4-ounce cup of melted butter, a bag of chips, and a soft roll with butter pat for around $12, which is only slightly more expensive than supper at McDonald's. Well, I like that it used to be lobster were considered trash food, and it was actually torture to make the inmates eat lobster, which I say, lock me up. I'll go in there. So, and then once again, his just unbelievable detail, and being a science teacher, I appreciated his Latin and all that. With his artful use of, he's just funny. He makes me laugh. I miss him, and I never knew him.
Mike Nicholas, retiring RBV science teacher and lover of both lobster and language. And now Act 2. For the past several years, we have been collecting lost notes of high school students that are left on classroom floors or drifting down the halls post-passing period. In case you haven't noticed, the high school teenage note is a dying art, changed from the college-ruled paper to the digital world of social media. So in honor of that remarkable word world of notes, drama students Hannah Stewart, Garrett Lamoureux, Brendan Hamill, and David Melendez perform 6 of our favorite finds.
David Melendez, Note 1, in musical form. For reals, I really like him. Really? Since when? Since he came into this class. Well, will you ask him out? Well, I'm scared. I have doubts. Well, tell him right now. Tell him right now. Well, can you? Why don't you just do it? Have courage. Please.
Hannah Stewart, note number 2. I like ship Jake and Casey, the guy that sits next to you.
Garrett Lamoureux, note number 3. I would just like to take this time to tell you something. You probably don't remember me much. I mean, I'm that guy that used to sit next to you in that English class, I would just like to tell you that I find you to be one of the cutest girls I've ever met. I mean, I have always adored you since I met you. My ideal woman would probably be blonde and quiet, and you fit the bill. I could go on for hours explaining the reasons why I like you. I mean, your unbelievable beauty, and I don't think that you have the time to hear me ramble, so I just want to really take you out on a date. My number is 1-760-598. I don't have a cell phone. That's my house number. Sorry, colon parentheses. If you're wondering why I haven't been there, I got taken out of school because of my grades and put into this stupid independent study school. So, I mean, I wish I could talk to you in person, but I can't step foot on any of the school grounds except for my independent study area. But it's all due to some contract, and you don't want to hear me get into it. Call me if you say yes, but please don't if you say no. I mean, I'd rather not hear you say no. Colon period.
Hannah Stewart.
Garrett Lamoureux.
No.
Number 4.
Hey, I gotta tell you something.
What is it?
You know Sarah?
No, what about her?
You don't? She's friends with my sister.
Oh, yeah, the white girl, right?
Yeah.
KK.
She stole the phone in the locker room.
Wait, why did she?
IDK, she's crazy. And she told the cops that my sister took it and gave it to her. But that's not even true. My sister was in the bathroom when she took it.
What? She's crazy? Is your sister talking to her?
No. I'll just find out what happened after class. Hannah Stewart.
Brendan Hamill, note number 5.
Te quiero mucho. My sepsi boyfriend.
Dear, I can't believe you put up with me for almost a month now. You've been such a great boyfriend. You're there for me when I'm down, when I'm really happy, when I'm feeling like the world is just shit. So thanks, capital D. You make me forget that guys have f***ed me all the time before you. Because when I'm with you, all I can think about is how lucky I am to be able to call you mine, heart.
I never would have thought me and you would get together.
Ever since practice at Dahlia's 15, I thought you were just so cute and had a small crush, but I knew you were with Pat, so I didn't say anything. But when I kept liking you more and more, and when we texted, I loved how funny and crazy you were, end parenthesis. Then you asked me who I liked, and I'm like,
damn, how am I gonna do this without telling him it's him, LOL.
etc. But then you told me you liked me, and I felt crazy butterflies, and I thought,
this isn't real.
But then I saw you at the park, and I'm like,
ugh.
Heart, haha, X, capital D. Then you asked me out, and I was so happy you were all mine. Smiley face, heart. You really make my life happier, better, and funnier. Ha, smiley face. Te quiero mucho, asterisk. Like you have no idea, heart.
You're mine, and only mine.
Te quiero, heart, asterisk.
Dave Melendez, and this is note number 6. Number 6. Well, since it's been great being with you, this week was kind of lame because you got pink eye. But you bring me so much joy every day. Oh, when I came to realize how much you mean to me, I kept on falling deeper and deeper in love. So I'm so glad that you told me you liked me, because it was really getting hard to keep my feelings in. It was just blasting out like a rocket. Oh, I'm not a rocket science, but I know what a rocket is. A rocket full of love. You told me you had feelings for me, but at first I couldn't believe you because I never thought you would like me that way, but now I can hug you and kiss you and hold your hand. Most importantly, I can call you mine. Well, right now I'm on my first class right now, thinking of you. I really don't know what else to say or write, but here's a drawing of me and you together. Hug, hug, kiss. Kiss, hug, hug, kiss. Really crappy drawing, but I love you. Love Jose.
Rancho graduating seniors Hannah, Garrett, Brendan, and David performing found notes of RBV students. And now Act 3. It would be hard to find a teacher who has had a bigger impact on the history and lives of Rancho staff and students. Retiring English teacher Sue Butler began her career teaching when she was just 21 years old and has never looked back. An original Longhorn and passionate advocate for students, Sue is a teacher's teacher who has inspired more students and staff that can be measured. In honor of her love of words, she reads and discusses a passage by one of her favorite authors, John Steinbeck.
Hello, my name is Sue Butler, and I am a teacher at Rancho Buena Vista High School. I am finishing this year a 40-year career of teaching high school English. The last 29 years have been here at Rancho. I currently teach 4 grade 11 advanced placement courses, which focuses on American literature because that suits me well because I'm sort of a Midwestern American gal. So the passage I will be reading from today is from John Steinbeck, who is one of my favorite authors to teach and to read. I like Steinbeck because he's a very earthy writer. He has a connection with the earth. And I was raised on a farm in the Midwest, so that speaks to me. It also, his characters are also very strong-willed and very determined, which also speaks to me in my past. Particularly today, I'm going to be reading just part of a chapter from East of Eden by John Steinbeck. And to summarize East of Eden, I would say it's an allegory of the story of Cain and Abel, which also is one of the reasons I like Steinbeck, because he believes in a balance or a symmetry in life and in people, that there are good things and that there are bad things, and he believes that one will balance out the other, and if anything, good will always win. So, this is from chapter 34, which is a very short chapter, and again, I'm just going to read the beginning and then the end. So a child may ask, what is the world's story about? And a grown man or woman may wonder, what way will the world go? How does it end? And, while we're at it, what's the story about? In uncertainty, I am certain that underneath their topmost layers of frailty, men want to be good and want to be loved. Indeed, most of their vices are attempted shortcuts to love. When a man comes to die, no matter what his talents and influence and genius, if he dies unloved, his life must be a failure to him, and his dying a cold horror. It seems to me that if you or I must choose between 2 courses of thought or action, we should remember our dying and try so to live that our death brings no pleasure to the world. We have only one story. All novels, all poetry are built on the never-ending contest in ourselves of good and evil. And it occurs to me that evil must constantly respawn, while virtue is immortal. Vice has always a new, fresh, young face, while virtue is venerable, as nothing else in the world is. And with that, I leave a 40-year career of high school public education.
English teacher extraordinaire, Sue Butler, reading a passage by John Steinbeck. Thank you for everything you've done for us, Sue. I owe you $1. And finally, Act 4. If you love dogs and think they deserve a special place in heaven, enjoy The Revenant by poet Billy Collins, read by our own English and choir teacher, Nick Wheat.
The Revenant by Billy Collins. I am the dog you put to sleep, as you like to call the needle of oblivion. Come back to tell you this simple thing. I never liked you, not one bit. When I licked your face, I thought of biting off your nose. When I watched you toweling yourself dry, I wanted to leap and unman you with a snap. I resented the way that you moved, your lack of animal grace, the way you would sit in a chair and eat, a napkin on your lap, knife in your hand. I would have run away, but I was too weak, a trick that you taught me while I was learning to sit and heal. And greatest of insults, shake hands without a hand. I admit the sight of the leash would excite me, but only because it meant I was about to smell things you had never touched. You do not want to believe this, but I have no reason to lie. I hated the car, the rubber toys, disliked your friends, and worse, your relatives. The jingling of my tags drove me mad. You always scratched me in the wrong place. All I ever wanted from you was food and fresh water in my metal bowls. While you slept, I watched you breathe. As the moon rose in the sky, it took all of my strength not to raise my head and howl. Now, I'm free of the collar, the yellow raincoat, monogrammed sweater, the absurdity of your lawn. And that is all you need to know about this place, except what you already supposed and are glad it did not happen sooner. That everyone here can read and write, the dogs in poetry, the cats and the others in prose.
RBV teacher Nick Wheat, reading The Revenant by one of my favorite poets, Billy Collins. And that does it for our June 2015 Respect the Ranch podcast. Thanks again to retiring teachers Mike Nicholas and Sue Butler, teacher Nick Wheat, and graduating seniors Hannah Stewart, Garrett Lamoureux, Brendan Hamill, and David Melendez. Our original music was created by RBV teacher Nick Wheat and RBV alumni Stephen Gomez. Check out the archived podcasts off our Respect the Ranch YouTube channel, linked on the RBV homepage. Also, send us feedback, give us leads on powerful stories, and contribute to our school culture by emailing our team at rtrpodcast@gmail.com. That's rtrpodcast, one word, @gmail.com. So until next time, I'm Scott Bailey, thanking you for listening to the Respect the Ranch podcast from Rancho Buena Vista High School. Hook 'em horns.
And as J.D. Salinger's Holden Caulfield stated as he was leaving the building, sleep tight, you morons.